Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Nicole Bach. I am an adult specialist at Luder Library, and we're really happy to be partnering with the Alzheimer's Association tonight on this event to let you know what the latest research is telling us about how to keep our bodies and brains as healthy as they can be. And we hope that you are able to put some practical tips into place thanks to our event today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brenda Gurung, and she will share her expertise with us. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Good evening, everybody. I'm Brenda Gurung. I go by she, her. I'm a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association, and I've worked in senior living, I don't know, to 12, 13 years, somewhere in there, kind of in there. And so I really enjoy facilitating workshops like these for the association. I like that. I don't know about you all, but I think sometimes we get worried coming to a workshop like this. You know, we come because we're seeing something in our loved one or in our neighbor or in ourselves, and we think, oh, or we have seen something in our loved ones or our colleague, and we think, I want to do whatever I can to prevent that. And I really like this workshop because it gives us a chance to look at just some good tips for healthy living that will also be good for our brain health in the long term. Today with me tonight, or I am with him, is Jeremy, who is from the Greater Missouri Alzheimer's Association chapter. He's awesome, and he is, I'm going to credit him a few times tonight. He's really helped me to step into this healthy living space. Emily, I just want to share, I had pushed back for like 2 years. Like, I'm not teaching that one. I don't do that. I'm not right to do this workshop. But I think I'm just going to be authentic with you all tonight. And I think as each of us take good, better steps, we will benefit our future path or that of our loved ones. So tonight or tomorrow, you will get an email from Jeremy from the association, which will include a Google form. It's super important to the association. I want to stress to you, you will not get contacted by the association unless you want to be. The reason we ask, and we ask 3 things, or the association asks 3 things: name, first name, last name, zip code. That's it. And it's all because all of the services offered by the association are free of charge. And the association is one of the largest funders of Alzheimer's and dementia research in the world. And so it's important to the association, and definitely to me as a volunteer, that the association shows how it spends its dollars. One thing I've loved about the pandemic is that we're able to now connect in spaces like this. And we'll, of course, be connecting together as well. But for tonight, we'll just be a little community. I'm sure most of us have used Zoom before. As we go through tonight, I want you to feel super comfortable sharing. If you want to unmute yourself, feel free. If you want to put a note in the chat, by all means. That reminds me, let me just fix my phone so I can see the chat. I want you to feel comfortable. If something really jumps out at you, like, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't think that would matter. Or if you have a question that's kind of like in that Alzheimer's dementia realm, but not really about this, go ahead and throw it in the chat as well, and we'll address it as the time comes. And special thanks to Emily and Sunryu, who are with us tonight, who are pretty impressive in their abilities. And again, Emily and Sunryu, please feel free to share as we go through if something hits you. Awesome. So let me fix, okay, perfect. So today, healthy living for your brain and body, we're going to cover some of the latest research. We're also going to include a little bit of a snip about what I'm sure you've heard in the news or seen on social media, the Educatimab, and that's pretty exciting. So I want to make sure we touch on that as well. Today, officially, we're going to look at one, just a good starting point. Like, why should we take care of ourselves as we age? And then we'll dive into some 4 categories and strategies within those of how to age well. So we'll look at the physicality, we'll look at diet, nutrition, cognitive, and social. And I think if we had maybe looked at this workshop, oh, I don't know, 19 months ago, maybe some people would have said, oh, that social thing, that's not as important. But I think we all learned last year, if we didn't already know, that the social aspect was huge. Jenna, welcome. So, aging and health, of course, depends on your genes, but your environment and your lifestyle. And there's a lot each of us can do to help keep our brain and our body healthy today and in the future. So a few items about the brain. When we think of, and often when I'll facilitate workshops for the association, like my favorite workshops to facilitate are understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, or effective communication strategies, or my very favorite, understanding and responding to dementia-related behaviors. And that's a really good one. If you're already in the trenches, or you work in this field, or you have a loved one and they're further in their journey, and you're like, oh, why does she do this, or why do they do that? The behaviors workshop really helps us to get in the mud together. But as we think about, just for today, when we think about the brain, and sometimes when we talk about Alzheimer's or dementia, it's really easy just to think about memory. But really the brain is a whole system. And so when we think about Alzheimer's or dementia, we're thinking about memory, sure, but we're thinking about thinking and cognitive ability. We're thinking about changes in mood or behavior. It's like the whole system of our brain and how that is affected in the dementia journey. So when we think about the brain specifically, 100 billion nerve cells, and this is not my specialization, but I think of them kind of as a web. Like that is what connects that network of neurons throughout our brain. That's amazing. That's such a huge number. And those signals are traveling along that network, and that's how we experience memories, thoughts, and feelings. Alzheimer's disease specifically destroys brain cells. I'm just going to skip this slide and I'll come back to it in just a sec. Very often, and Sunryu and Emily, I'm going to open it up for you both in just a sec in case there's anything you want to share. But often in these workshops, somebody will say, well, Alzheimer's and dementia, isn't that like the same thing? Or my aunt was diagnosed with dementia, right? So that's a disease. Dementia really, it's just a general term. It's like soup instead of chicken noodle soup, or soup instead of Italian wedding soup. Whereas Alzheimer's disease, frontal temporal, Lewy body, those are all specific actual diagnoses. When we think about the risk for Alzheimer's specifically and dementia in general, we think about age. Neither Alzheimer's nor dementia in general are a normal part of aging, but our chances increase the greater we age. We think about genetics, head injury, TBIs have been huge in seeing increases in dementia. And then this cardiovascular factor. And that part we think about, it's not like our brain just walks around by itself, it is kept healthy by our whole system and our cardio system. And then there's some social impacts. So for example, fewer years of formal education. I want to pause right there. Sunryu or Emily, is there anything you want to highlight or make sure we emphasize?
I think that cardiovascular factors.
Say again, Sunryu.
Yes, so I think that the cardiovascular factor is very one of our cause of this disease. Yeah.
Yes, cardiovascular is huge.
Yes.
May I say something? Or
yes, Darlene, please.
I'm trying to understand how fewer years of formal education what does that have to do with And then do you want me to save my questions for last? Because I can write them down and ask you when you finish with your presentation, because I don't want to interrupt your presentation.
No, this is perfect, Darlene. I want us to be a little community together. So let's first tackle fewer years of formal education. And Jeremy, I know I'm going to be a little bit clumsy in this answer, so I'm hoping you can help as well. But how I perceive this and how I understand this to be is part of that socioeconomic aspect of how we age, healthy or not healthy, and what sort of disease factors we experience. So fewer years of formal education may also be connected to less healthy habits or less less good eating habits. And sort of that, Jeremy, is that an okay answer? It feels kind of crummy.
Now, you always turn to the personal trainer in the room when these questions hit like that, don't you? That is the exact perfect way to explain it right there, because really what it comes down to, and when you put the coin in there, or the term socioeconomic stance, it doesn't matter where you go. You could go to Southwest Missouri, you could go to the Boot Hill, you could, a lot of places. And if you, this maybe get a little more technical here than what we need to tonight, but even like with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're going to go for food and safety before you're going to go for that top end right there. So you explained it beautifully. So that's how I would, to answer Darlene's question or put an exclamation point on it, hit the nail on the head. Yes.
I think it also has to do with kind of building a little bit of a cognitive reserve. What I've read before is that, you know, the more formal education you have, supposedly, you know, the more reading you've done, maybe you know another language. And so I've read that, you know, as you make those connections stronger, your brain kind of has a little bit more to draw on when you start to experience neurodegenerative disease. And Emily and, you know, Sunryu can correct me if that's way out of line.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it too. And one thing I did want to chime in was that I attended a talk recently about, I think it was at WashU, and it was basically the latest on Alzheimer's research over there. And they said that quality of education is really important. So it could be that somebody does have 16 years of education, but if it's not good quality, then that's not good either. So I think now they're using IQ as a way, instead of years of education, to measure risk for Alzheimer's and dementia.
Oh, interesting, Emily. Thank you for sharing. For everybody, what Nicole was saying, we'll also tap into that more deeply a little bit later when we talk about kind of like what is good cognitive exercise for our brain. You know, show of hands for those of you who are on screen. I mean, working in senior living, I don't know how many times I spoke with an elder who's like, oh, I do the crossword puzzle every day. Well, it doesn't necessarily like stretch your brain. So we'll talk about that. Darlene, did you want to share your questions now or in the chat or later? What would you like?
I can share it now. I mean, I thought I heard you mention something about, and then I want to show this first.
Good.
I do word games.
Good. Good.
But did I hear you say something about a behavioral workshop that your organization presents? Because my father he's getting ready to be 90 here, coming up in a couple of months, and we can see his mind is not right. So yeah. I'm very interested in it, and that's why I want to find out more information about that.
Excellent, Darlene. You know, Darlene, I don't know. I don't want to sound like some hippie, but I just had a sense that tonight was the night to just sort of put a plug on the behaviors workshop. So let me just take a step back for a sec and share with you a few of the services of the association. So there are free workshops like this that are virtual or in person, or will be in person, are in person. That's right. Jeremy, I saw you at a workshop. And so let me list off a few that might be helpful. For those of us in the room tonight, if we're feeling like, oof, I feel like I'm really screwing up the words lately, or I feel like, you know, my emails at work are kind of a disaster. I'm like seeing stuff in myself that I'm getting nervous about. I might want to attend the 10 warning signs workshop. That's a great one because it gives us a clue, some things that may be warning signs that we don't think of, like changes in spatial and perception. It also gives us a sense of what are those things that are normal versus quote unquote not normal aging, and we should get checked out. And the beauty of that workshop is it kind of gives us a next step, you know? So if I start to see, I'm like seeing these things in myself, I go to the workshop and I'm like, oh, dang it. So I'm going to schedule a meeting with my PCP and just kind of work through some things to make sure the stuff I'm seeing, is it rooted in something else? Or is it indeed rooted in what my suspicion is, which is some form of dementia? So that's a great one.
Okay.
There's others like the effective communication strategies. So often in this journey, whether it's ourselves, our loved one, our client, you know, as our client shifts in this journey, the onus is on me to make sure we have successful interactions. Like I need to adjust how I come to the table. And so we address a lot of that in the communications workshop. And then the behaviors, the understanding and responding to dementia-related behaviors, that helps us just kind of deconstruct some of the stuff that I think, I may be projecting, I think freaks us out in this journey. Like, oh my gosh, my loved one is perseverating. They're super repetitive all the time, and it's kind of going to make me crack. Or my loved one like really starts to spin out of control in the late afternoon. It'll help us with those strategies.
Okay.
Some other,
Thank you.
You're welcome, Darlene. I'm so glad you asked. Some other things for everybody on the call, the association offers, we'll highlight later the 1-800, the helpline. That is personed 24 hours a day, every day of the year. You know, maybe some of us on this call are in families that aren't always in sync, right? So the association offers free care consultations, or, you know, maybe my loved one has seen the same dang PCP for the last 30 years and it's not the one they need now. So we can call to get a referral or talk through strategies. Really, in the end of this, I just want you to know you have resources in Jeremy, you have resources in Nicole and myself tonight, and you have a whole wealth of people every other day and time of day the rest of our days. Sound okay? Excellent. So I skipped one. So the heart-brain connection, and Sungru kind of emphasized this a moment ago. These aren't two separate systems, you know. I love that heart-brain cartoon, which sort of acts as if they're different, but they are connected. So what we do to protect our heart is going to benefit our brain. And I love this statistic down here at the bottom. Of every heartbeat, 25% of that goes to our noggin. That's how critical those two are connected. So let's dive in. We have 4 categories: cognitive, physical, diet, social. So physical. I have to move my thing. I'm all out of skew, Nicole. Okay, good. So cardio. Just like what we'll talk about a little bit later about the cognitive exercise, it's not enough just to poke along and sort of do this exercise. That's not going to get me too much. Like I need to make sure I'm really getting that blood flow and blood pumping. And if anybody on the call tonight is feeling insecure, like I always do when we talk about this, is that if nothing else, just take another step. You know, I remember a few years ago, one of my sisters became really conscientious about parking in the furthest parking spot. Like there are those little things we can do to sort of trick our body into getting more exercise and getting our cardio up. If there's one that you really like, that's a tip, by all means, share it in the chat or feel free to unmute and share as we go. Regular vigorous exercise, that's going to increase our blood flow and benefit us. And I like this last one, no single recipe for brain health. We all kind of get our pet project that we love and we're like, oh, Nicole, you got to study another language. That's what you got to do. Like, I'm like the language evangelist, you know? But maybe Nicole would rather do the Sudoku or some other thing, or like some complicated crocheting. I don't know. Like there's other ways. There's no one right way, either for brain health or when we're talking about cardio.
It's surprising how you can easily build up habits of just taking 15 to 20 minutes out of your day to go down, hit the treadmill, and just do it. Just do it. Just get on it, put my headphones on, and just walk at a nice brisk pace for myself, build up a quick heartbeat, quick sweat, and it's amazing how quickly I can go from 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and then over time 30 minutes, and over time 40 minutes. Before you know it, you're up to 45 minutes of walking, and even at a higher incline and also at a higher pace. And again, it's all about incorporating habits in the choices that we make.
I love that. Now, so this is Brenda talking, not the Alzheimer's Association. Brenda tends to take the path of like one additional step each time. Brenda's spouse takes the step of tomorrow I'm starting all these things and quitting all these things. So I don't even want to box you in. Like I'm always going to err on the side of like, just take a step. But if you're my spouse and you're like, hell, tomorrow's the day, I'm doing it all tomorrow, then that's great. You do what's going to work for you. I love in our video just there, like how easy he made it. For those of us who work during the day, especially during the pandemic when so many of us were remote, I found that I just was like focused on this dumb box all the time. But just stepping away for a bit, the reminder on your phone to get up and go for a walk. Some of my colleagues and I earlier in the year, we made a practice of doing walking meetings periodically instead of always just sitting on our little chunky behinds and talking over data, like really getting out there and moving and talking things through. It gave us a new perspective and we always felt better. So some good tips, something we like. Doesn't have to be like, well, my dad always said I had to jog, but I hate jogging, so I'm going to jog and I'm going to hate it, I'm going to quit. Like, what are those things that we enjoy that get us excited? Jeremy, one thing I love about Jeremy, there's a lot of things I love about Jeremy. Jeremy, I'm going to try not to gush too much tonight. Jeremy's also a hunter. And so he thinks about hunting and how he's going to be physically well in that endeavor. And like that never occurred to me. Like I just love this idea of finding the way to get that cardio in a way that resonates with you. So definitely move safely. If you have some concerns or you have some past things you need to check with your doc, do that. And that's part about asking friends or your colleagues or your tribe, like get that crew together that you're going to do those things. Let me pause right there. Anything really resonating with anyone that you want to highlight?
I know this is Darlene, and I know it's important to move regardless of what age you are. And it looks like it's of greater importance the older that I get.
No question, Darlene. I love it. There was one of my former colleagues, she told me something that just brought me such joy imagining it. She and her family have a tradition, I don't know, it's some day of the week, and they have like dance party. And she made sure to tell me that she is not a dancer and she does not see herself as graceful or anything. But it's like this thing they do, and they turn on the music loud and they dance around and they laugh and they have so much fun. And it's such a, like, what a great way to move and not to be so caught up in yourself and your insecurities. Thank you, Darlene. Good job. So those are some things we can do. Maybe some things we should avoid or pull back from doing. Smoking, excess alcohol. Gosh, getting enough sleep. Like our body is designed to get rest, to not always be on the go or not to have that choppy sleep. Managing stress. I remember there was a scenario just recently that I witnessed. And this poor person was just so tied up in knots and just like burst. And that's all that stress they've been carrying around. Like, that's not good for us either. Just treating our depression, figuring out ways to sort of get our center, if that's a faith practice or a meditation or a breathing exercise, whatever those things are. I like number 4, avoid head injury. I think it's funny because it's not like, Nicole, I was planning on getting a head injury, but I should probably avoid it, you know? Maybe that's not funny. I think it's funny. I think it's funny how it's worded. Nicole, I'm sorry. I'm not doing good. So good things to
bring in the levity.
Thank you, Nicole. So things that we could measure. I think for a long time, I don't know, maybe these are helpful, maybe these are things we all know. I know forever in sort of like my circle, it was all about weight, you know? But then in some other circles I'm in, it's all about how much weight you can lift. Or it's a blood pressure, a blood sugar, or cholesterol. You know, some of the times I felt the best, my cholesterol was all out of whack. So like we find those things that we need to track with our doc or on our own with some of these. Okay, so on to number 2, diet and nutrition. Like we said a few slides ago, heart and head, what's good for one is good for the other. I like the second bullet, nutritious food is fuel for the brain. So good dietary guidelines to reduce the risk of heart disease, cancer, Parkinson's. Those are going to be good dietary guidelines for our brain.
Foods that have been shown to lead to healthy aging would be fruits and vegetables, and in particular green leafy vegetables and berries, as well as limited intake of high-fat food items that you get through high-fat dairy and cheese and red meats, and also healthy vegetable oils. So this would be olive oil would be a good example, have been shown to reduce your risk of heart disease as well as dementia.
This part I think we'll often share like what are fun or easy substitutes. So she said about vegetable oil. I think of the times that I ate green leafy veg years ago and I felt so proud of myself, but it was like fried in oil with like ham, you know, like it was a step. I'm better now, Nicole. I'm better veg now. But I'm curious, does anybody want to share kind of their tip? Like what do they like to substitute out? Or is there some trick they kind of do to make sure they're getting better nutrition? Anybody?
This is Darlene, and I like to make sure that I have more vegetables on the plate, more so than the protein.
Yes.
And then I'm also trying out this week, as a matter of fact, some plant-based meatless bologna and tofu, which I've never had in my life. I keep looking at it. I guess I'll fix it sometime next couple of days, figure out how to eat it, whatever. But those are some things that I do when I go out, especially look for the healthier item as opposed to see how much meat I can get, barbecue or whatever, just try to
Good, Darlene. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Good tips you like? Antoinette, you have the best face and expression. Is there something you want to share with us?
Good evening. Thank you for that compliment. Actually, I was about to actually send a question, but seeing how as you called upon me, I'll just go ahead and put it on out here. And hopefully it'll make, it, I'll be making it clear.
You'll be good.
I have read a variety of articles when it comes to this brain health, and one of the key things that in the bullet item when you had mentioned about stress. Well, some of the articles that I've read that where they're saying that there are good stresses, bad stresses, in life. And so my question is, in all of my readings, it really has never been really clear. What does a good stress, bad stress really mean? And how does it relate to your overall brain health and or either, oh, I think I just hit something here. There we go. uh, and does it play into, or how does it play into dementia? I know I was long-winded on that, but there you go.
Good one. It's a good one, Antoinette. Let me first put it out to the group. Emily or Nicole or Jeremy, are you like, Sunryu, do you want to dive in here? And if no, that's fine. I love your question, Antoinette.
Thank you.
I'll take a brief stab at it. I mean, stress. I talk a lot about stress management, Antoinette, because there is no stress termination. Stress is part of what it is. Okay. If you walk up a flight of stairs and you feel, oh, what's that in my legs? That's physical stress. You're working it. You understand what I'm saying? So when you have a certain level of stress, like with work or things you're doing, there's a certain level that can actually be beneficial, but then there gets to be a certain level where I will describe it as toxic. It affects you from a physical standpoint. And I think that's I read a statement one time, and it was years ago. I can't corroborate where the study came from, but was talking about uncontrolled stress being as harmful for you as obesity and smoking cigarettes. It's not good. So from my vantage point, does it have a direct correlation to it? I can't sit here tonight and say that, but I can tell you that the way it can impact other aspects of your body, I could not rule it out.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, Jay.
Okay,
Go ahead,
so,
Antoinette.
oh, I'm sorry.
No.
So does that mean, well, okay, I'm retired, but a couple of things, and I really don't mind sharing. I'm a cancer survivor, 2009.
Awesome.
But I am also, thank you, but I am a writer of short stories, poetry, and a mixed media artist. And so there are those times to where when the creative muses get to going in overflow,
Yeah.
you had mentioned sleep. There are just some things that I'm going like, okay, I'm not, tonight is not going to be an 8-hour sleep.
Right.
There's either a story or visual piece that I just, I wake up and I have to work on.
Yeah.
So where was I going with this? Oh, okay. So for me, it's a pleasure. But I also heard you mention, well, you got to get sleep. Well, hey, if I'm working on a character in a story that's just, knocking, going like, hello, I want attention. Well, boom, yeah, I get up and work.
Exactly.
So
I love that, Antoinette. It's so good. You are exactly on the right track, because it doesn't mean we have to get 6 or 8 or whatever that magic number is. If tonight's the night that I'm so jazzed and I finally figured out that plot twist. Oh my God, I gotta do it. Or for some of us, we're reading and we're like, I should really put this down, but this is amazing, and we're going through and I think, I don't know about all of us, but I think when we have those moments the next day, or that when we do wake up, we are super energized. Like we wake up, maybe it was less sleep that one time, but we had this awesome breakthrough. Is that helpful or too vague?
Helpful. So that just lets me know, because I will have to admit, there are a couple of projects that I've been working on lately to where me and sleep, it's this bouncing back and forth. And I have to admit, lately I have been having a very, I'm not going to say worry, but a very healthy concern.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, how do I change things? But it's not going to happen. Well, let's put it like this. Excuse me. As we speak this evening.
Exactly. Yeah, good. Antoinette has really given us kind of two ends of that pendulum swing, like that joyous, like I'm so excited, I'm going to stay up and do this, or that last little bit you said about, you're a little bit concerned about these things. So I think what we would see in this workshop and in the 10 warning signs, if there's some stuff that like we're seeing, like, gosh, there are times I don't get sleep and I'm super excited and I wake up next morning, I'm still like energized and jazzed, that seems to feel okay. But then if we're like, I'm really draggy, or I'm not sleeping, or I used to sleep well and now I'm not, or I used to never sleep and now I'm sleeping 12 hours, like those are good things to check out with our PCP. Good, Antoinette. Awesome. I want to highlight, Douglas said, I like to add berries and walnuts to my oatmeal and yogurt for breakfast and lunch. Good job, Douglas. I think about my cousin, like he had said he always cooked a lot with sour cream and now he cooks with Greek yogurt. There are those things we can substitute out. Or maybe I just do the eggs and bacon, once a week or every other week, or it's just with my bestie. We think about those ways to switch in the healthier thing. Jeremy says, what is this sleep thing you speak of? I want some sleep. So Jeremy's a good example for us. Excellent, Antoinette. So something we can do, some things we can avoid. Definitely more veg, more fruit, more nuts, beans, grains. There was a writer I used to love, and I can't remember his name anymore, but he used to say more plants, less something. Now I'm flaking on it. More plants, less meat, maybe? Anyway, more plants. Those lean meats, fish and poultry. If we're going to eat the fatty stuff, maybe it's just a little portion, or maybe we fill up on the veg first. We think of these ways. I don't know about you all, but I grew up, the dinner plate was this. Maybe I really like to eat out of a bowl now. And I find when I eat out of a bowl, maybe I'll start with the veg and eat that, and then I'll go back and get some meat. And so we don't always have to follow the same physical thing that we were given, sort of that construct that causes us to eat. Definitely want to avoid those saturated or trans fats and the processed foods. Kind of the cleaner, the purer the food is, the better. Excellent. Nicole says, thanks for sharing that, Emily. Oh, Emily, I missed yours. Oh, sorry, Emily. Oh, Emily, unmute yourself. Go ahead and share.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I took a class on sleep actually in my graduate career, and my professor told us that there's no magical number that anybody needs. Oftentimes we hear adults need 7 to 9 hours. And it's a good rule of thumb and it's a good average, but it's really dependent on the person. So everybody's unique and everybody needs a different number of hours of sleep. And that number just depends on how rested you feel and ready to take on the day. So if you get 6 hours and you feel really energized and ready to go the next day, then that's your number then.
Excellent. I like that too, because it's not so regimented, and it also causes us to have to listen to our center. I think part of where we're headed today as a culture and as healthy living is just to also listen to this thing, right? Good. Excellent. And Nicole thanked Emily for sharing, highlights how important it is to listen to your body. And Jeremy says, Emily, you're spot on. And what is your norm? If it's 6 hours, that's great. But if your normal is 6 and you're only getting 2, if your norm is, if you feel good at 8 and you're getting 6 for 4 weeks while you do that big project, and just 2 tiny plugs. There's a, oh, dang it. There was a theory or philosophy or whatever called called something about energy. And the idea was that we only have limited time, but we can expand our energy. So, Emily, if you've ever had a day where you're at work and you're just I just got to press through, I just got to keep it. I'm so tired. I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm staying at my desk and I'm going to work. then generally our productivity goes down and we're not as creative and don't really see the connections as well. But maybe if I take a break and refresh or take a nap or just throw it away for a day, I come back the next day and it all makes sense, So thinking about not just, and this may resonate with some people, may not. I know from how my brain works is I just gotta put my head down and push through it, but it doesn't really get me the same output as when I step away, get some rest, and then come back. Antoinette, you reminded me, I just finished a few weeks ago this book, The Body Keeps the Score. It was all about trauma and how our body processes trauma. And one of the things that was said is that if there is a traumatic experience and we're in it and we can sort of react to it and like get that energy out, we can process it. But if we've been in a traumatic event and we were kind of stuck in it, or it was really psychological and we couldn't like fight through it, often that stress is still all bound up in that trauma. Go ahead, Nicole. You look like you want to share something.
I just wanted to say I want to read that book.
Good. Yeah. Excellent. Good. So when we think about diet nutrition, this is sort of our slide that what do you call? Sort of like, I don't have the words tonight, Nicole. I have word finding issues. This is what sort of connects us back with that cautionary aspect of ourselves. Show of hands, if a few years ago you heard they're like, just have coconut oil. Coconut oil that'll be everything. Your brain will be amazing. It's like all slimy and it's great. So you want to think about, if you're hearing that, like, this is the magic cure, like, be super cautious about that, and then consult those reputable sources, whether it's the WHO, whether it's your doc, whether it's the research that's coming in. But just like, don't get super excited that like this one nutritional thing is gonna fix it all. Okay, so cognitive brain stuff. So we said before, not just the easy brain exercises, not all those people I met at my senior living communities that were like, well, I do the crossword puzzle. But if the crossword puzzle isn't hard, if it's not stretching your brain, then it's not enough. So if I sort of like, I'm at my parents' house right now, they have this little like circular driveway and it's gravel. I just want you to have a picture of it. If I like walk around that 4 times, then kind of a slow pace, like, what the hell? Like, it didn't really do anything. It didn't stretch my body. And the same thing with my brain. I want something that's going to be kind of hard, so whether that's, and it doesn't have to be quote unquote like smart things. I think sometimes we think cognitive activity, we think it has to be like some scholarly thing. It can be the game that's hard. I used to do puzzles when I was growing up, and now my niece is into puzzles, and her puzzles are so flippin' hard. Like, they're so hard. And so that's a good exercise. Or maybe it's the stuff, think about like multiple parts of your body having to work. So it's a complicated crochet pattern. You have to read the thing and count, and then you have the needle, or that's the other one, that's knitting. But you sort of think of the things that are going to cause you to be like, whew, I sure sweated a lot in my brain on that one. So cognitive activity encourages blood flow to the brain. And in that way, to me, it feels like that exercise. So Darlene, is reading a good activity to help the brain? Yes, no question. I'm going to call on Nicole in just a sec, because I know you have that awesome group that I already forgot what it was. But you also want to think about, like, if I'm reading kids' books, maybe that's not going to stretch me as much. But if I'm reading, oh my God, I read The Velveteen Rabbit and Winnie the Pooh a couple of years ago, and I was like weeping how beautiful and philosophical and just deep these were. These are kids' books, but it was like this whole other thing. So reading, yes, by all means, as long as it's pushing. Nicole, what were you going to share?
Oh, I was just going to share that, yes, absolutely. Reading is a full workout for your brain. I think, because we're all such expert readers and we've been reading for so long, we read so fluently that unless you have vision problems or you don't speak the language fluently, like you can't not read the words on a page. So we tend to take it for granted that it's kind of this easy thing because we don't really think about it anymore, but actually it's working so many parts of your brain, the language processing parts, the parts that control your ability to sustain focus, your memory, even parts of your brain that are related to processing visual information, sensory motor information, like all of those things are activated when you're reading something. And recently, a study came out that imaged a brain, several studies, study participants' brains, and they were showing the areas of the brain that lit up during reading a book and listening to a book. And it's essentially the same brain activity patterns. It's really interesting. So all of those things are activating when you're reading, whether you're reading a book or listening to a book. So it's absolutely a very good thing to do for your brain. And the more you engage in extended reading, the stronger those connections get. And so there's a huge push to do more extended reading to help your ability to focus your attention and also to make sure that you are, conserving your ability to acquire new language through reading. So it's all really good cognitive exercise to engage in, absolutely. And we, I didn't want to jump the gun on it, but we do have a book club that started at the library that involves audiobooks, meeting for a 30-minute walk, and then gathering afterwards for an informal book show and tell. So I'll save that for the end.
So good. I love that program, Nicole, because it's like the whole circle, there's movement.
We should have called it the whole enchilada club, but it's the Active Minds book club. We thought that was a little classier.
You just had people hungry coming to it if it was the other one. Good job. And then this part about formal education, Brenda is going to put formal in air quotes, because one thing that was so cool that came out of last year is all of these webinar options. It's like you can participate. Like there's a bird rescue where I live in Colorado, and they do workshops, webinars on like the flammulated owl, like so fascinating. So you can do that education, that quote unquote formal education. Doesn't mean you have to be enrolled in school and like looking at a physical book. So you can definitely stretch your brain that way too. Excellent.
One of the most interesting factors is cognitive stimulating activities, which basically for us just means mental processing of information. It can be from a book, it can be from the radio, it can be a magazine, it can be from a lecture, it can actually be from watching TV. All of these things require processing information. And the old adage of, use it or lose it is actually something that turns out, at least from the observational data, to look like it's true. So numerous studies now have shown that being more engaged in cognitively stimulating activities is actually good for maintaining cognition. And it's true in late life, and it's true in early life. And so what we recommend is that you start early, and if you're already late, start now.
Start now. So Sun Ryu, go ahead and unmute yourselves and share with us what you were thinking about with music.
I just know that the exercise, the move the muscle, not routine movement, the hidden, use the hidden muscle. That is good for the brain health, and also reading also good, and also listening to nice music, especially kind of classical music. It is also good for the brain health. And also In my case, recently I started learning the playing the violin. So yes, but so I think that learning the instrument was my tutor, my violin teacher's a little bit. He's very strict. So I like it. Yeah. So he, he's not. So since I learning the violin, I think that I could more focus on my work and also I feel like my brain is more tension. How to say tangle?
Yeah.
Tighten. Yeah, tighten.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that, Sunryu.
So
I
not
think, yeah,
not
go ahead.
easy to to learn the violin is very
Right.
very yes. But I think it is very good for the brain health. Yeah.
I'm imagining Sunru, playing her violin, and she's like, her brain's working, her fingers are working, this arm is working. Like, it's just it's so complicated,
Yes.
Good. Excellent, Sunru. Thank you. For anyone who hasn't seen the documentary Alive Inside, was about this awesome social worker and the idea that music is processed in a different part of the brain than language and spoken language. And I always kind of point to back here for music and Emily here for language, but I know you can get it better. Can you point for us? Where are they?
Oh gosh. So, well, there's two different areas for language processing in the brain, or two areas. Yeah. So there's Broca's and then there's Wernicke's.
Yes.
I believe Wernicke's is in temporal, so that would be kind of like the side of the brain. And Broca's, I want to say, is in the frontal lobe. So kind of
awesome.
More up here.
You're so good. It's amazing having these amazing people on. There's something that when we're working with a client who has dementia or a loved one who has dementia, even late in that journey, if they are quote unquote nonverbal, maybe they are not communicating in the way I've been accustomed to them communicating. Maybe they're communicating more through their behaviors and their expressions and their physicality. We can sometimes connect through music because it is processed in a different part of the brain. And when we look at the brain scans of a brain with Alzheimer's, that part of the brain is still relatively intact, like amazing. And so there's this famous video of Naomi File, this incredible social worker, and she's working with Ms. Wilson. And Ms. Wilson, for all accounts, many of us would look at this video and say, oh, Ms. Wilson is no longer there. She is gone. We cannot connect with her because she has Alzheimer's. And Naomi File spends some time with her and says, and she knows a little bit of Ms. Wilson's past, so knows that her faith is important to her. And so she starts to sing this faith song, and Ms. Wilson starts tapping along and then kind of gets excited and like grabs her shirt. And for those of us in senior living, we might see that and think, oh, Ms. Wilson is getting upset, but no, she is pounding with the music as she's able, and she's getting excited and like, yes, do it more. And at the end, she sings like a little, like the last word, and it is magical. And so just Brenda's personal plug, as we think about our loved ones or ourselves or our clients who are later in that dementia journey, they are not gone. It is up to us to find the way to push back that veil and connect. So, Darlene, can somebody give me the telephone number for the association website? Excellent, Darlene. It's in the chat. It's good, Darlene. It's 1-800-272-3900, and that's personed every day, 24 hours a day. There's also the site. You're welcome, Darlene. There's also the site alz.org. Oh, Nicole said, I didn't think this workshop was going to make me cry. That's how we know we're doing it right, Nicole. ahead, Sandru. Did you want to say something? No? Okay, no problem. Okay, good. So some of this we've looked at already, books and articles that challenge and inspire, puzzles, and we've sort of alluded to this, if we can do a cognitive thing that is also a physical thing at the same time, like that's that much more complicated. Sort of like, this is not right, but it reminds me of the equivalent of, when you have to do this and then this thing, and you have to, that is what's happening when we're reading and moving. So think about ways to really stretch your brain. Okay, and then lastly, social engagement. Social engagement is associated with living longer, with fewer disabilities. Last year, we kept seeing statistics about the impact of isolation and loneliness, and like the equivalent of smoking cigarettes, like so dramatic. I think we feel that in a way that maybe we didn't before 2020. But it still really is important to emphasize here, staying engaged and socially connected, not just living far away, or we can live far away, but we gotta still connect and engage with people and get, like, this is a cognitive activity, right? Emily and Nicole and I, we sit, if we're having coffee together, or I feel like, Emily, I feel like you're a tea drinker. No? Okay, I misjudged. We're sitting and we're telling stories, and we're kind of like, we're jumping off of each other and saying, oh my gosh, I had that too. Like, that is a social engagement, also cognitive, and it really helps us to continue to stretch. So socially and mentally active may support brain health and possibly delay the onset of dementia. So things we think about, visiting with loved ones, volunteering. As a representative of senior living, I'd say senior living communities love volunteers, and it's so awesome to be a visitor, go and sit with Ms. Jones and hear her stories or look through her photos together. A book or a club, involved in that community, whether it's the birders or the faith community, whatever it is, sort of that thing that's bigger than us. So as we kind of roll it all together, when we think about our health, it's that whole body health. It's moving, and especially moving in a way that sort of gets my blood flowing. Making those tweaks to get better nutrition, to eat better, more veg, less red meat, less fats. Stretch that mind just as much as we do our cardio, and stay connected. We don't do this path alone, ever. So the more connected we are, the better.
Recently, at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, there was a study reported of the results of a large clinical trial that was done in the Scandinavian countries. And in this trial, they took half the people in the trial and they adjusted their exercise level, their diet, their social engagement, and their mental stimulation. They developed programs for each one of those variables, changed all of those for the people that were in the test group, and the control group just lived as they had been. There is a tremendous benefit to doing studies where we make changes and observe after the fact. That's a much stronger study than just observing people and trying to make judgments after life has changed for them. To my mind, one of the things that this has done is it's changed the force of recommendation that we might make around the benefit of these interventions for prevention of Alzheimer's disease or for brain health. And the fact is that I think it's moved it from possibly exercise, diet adjustments, social engagement, mental stimulation are useful to probably. And that's a big change and makes it easier for people to make those kinds of adjustments for the benefit of their future health.
So we have a couple exciting things right now, today. One is the FDA approval of the Educatimab, or what is called the sort of the brand name Aduhelm. So I don't know about you, I had heard a bunch of articles that were talking about it. What we at the association and we as volunteers are super excited about is this is the first drug in 18 years for Alzheimer's disease. And they have seen that there can be an impact, especially for people at that early stage of the journey. And so as Brenda, this is Brenda talking, not the association, like if there is potential for help after all this time, I want people to have access to it. So I'm super excited. We're super excited. So the drug maker, what do you call it, pharma, they're working with the FDA and that it's approved, and then others are working with Medicare to see if it'll be covered and how much and all of those things. But it's sort of the first big exciting drug news we've had in forever. The other thing that's really exciting that's happening, I said today, but I'm not sure if it's today or last week, and Jeremy, if you're still with us, is the AAIC, the Alzheimer's something, it's like the scientific conference every year. And so I already missed an email earlier. I think there was a big announcement. Jeremy, anything you want to share that you have seen from the conference?
So I've not had a chance to really sit down either, but you are correct. It is this week. And so they'll be having recaps on this. Probably the stuff that's coming out, we'll start getting more headlines as the days and weeks follow.
Awesome. So exciting. There's a cool app that is called, oh dang it, it's called something Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's Science Hub, if you can see, and it gives you updates on research that's going on. So that's super cool. So I want to make sure to show you one more thing. I'm going to show you one more thing, and then I want to transition back to Nicole for whatever she wants to share in the Enchilada Club. I think we've just renamed it as a group. I think we voted.
And I'm so sorry, we do need to wrap up pretty soon. We lock up the building at 7:15.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Nicole. I thought we were until 7:30. I apologize.
No, sorry.
Oh gosh, no. So you all have, if you can see the screen, you see the helpline. Jeremy put it in the chat. Let's just pivot over to Nicole. Nicole, what did you want to share?
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. First of all, I just wanted to thank you for this phenomenal presentation. I did not expect to be moved to tears. That is a testament to you. I think this was fantastic information that we all needed to hear. And I know we're all really excited to put some plans into place and start building some new healthy habits and everything. But I wanted to also let everyone know that we started our Active Minds Book Club. We meet at the Buder Library every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. You get to listen to whatever audiobook you choose. We take a nice 30-minute walk from our branch to Francis Park, which is a really beautiful place to walk in South St. Louis City. And then after our 30-ish minutes walk, we gather at a corner of the park under some trees and just have a little informal book show and tell. So it's a nice way to kind of find out about different genres, different authors, or you could also share something, that you don't care about. Maybe you found a great book, but the narrator is ruining it for you. Share, don't share, whatever you want. It's a really nice, fun, low stress way to get yourself moving, listen to some great books, and meet some fabulous new people. So we hope that you'll join us next Tuesday at 8 a.m. You can find sign-up information on our website, slpl.org, just the same way that you found out about today's event. So I hope to see some of your lovely faces next Tuesday.